Hey everybody, it's Christina, and this is your lecture video for week 8, day 1 of the term. And just as a reminder, we will not be having class on February 23rd, which is Monday. We will reconvene for class on Wednesday. So your job for the Monday class is go through this recording, and you'll have a few things that you need to do to prepare for our class on Wednesday. All right. So just like we do when we're in class together, I'm going to go through our beginning slides. So we will not have class tomorrow on the 23rd. And on the 25th, part of our class, the last part of our class, is going to be group advising. So if you've already gotten your advising done for the term, you're welcome to hang out with us, or you'll be able to leave a bit early. All right, preparation for Wednesday's class. In addition to watching this lecture, you're going to think about a time when you received poor customer service in writing. Just jot down some notes. What made it frustrating? What could have improved? And how did it impact your perception of the brand? So that's going to be one thing that you do for preparation for Wednesday's class. The second thing that you'll do to prepare for Wednesday's class is think of a place that you have a favorable opinion of. For example, let's say you really like Red Robin. You're going to go on Google, Yelp, or some other online review platform, and you're going to find a bad review of that place that you like. And you'll either email a copy of that review to yourself or bring a copy to class or print one when you get there. We'll use these bad reviews of a place we actually like to do part of a discussion. And then you'll read a Psychology Today article, which is on the next slide. This article is all about the psychology of trust in business relationships. And that's from Psychology Today. It's not a very long read. It might take you 5 to 10 minutes, but I would love for you to jot down a few takeaways or maybe highlight on that article some things, because we will use this as a piece of discussion in our class on Wednesday. Okay, so here we are to our topic for this week. It's all about customer service and difficult conversations in writing. Now, many of you may have already taken customer service, which is BT 178, or you may be going to take customer service. This part of our class is not necessarily about how you deliver service. It's really about how you write in customer service. And we're going to focus on, for this week, those difficult conversations that have to be written when it comes to customer service. Now, you may think to yourself, okay, why does this actually matter? We're focusing on one of the most important business skills that you can develop, which is handling difficult conversations in writing. When customers are upset, when they're confused, when they're disappointed, your written response can either build trust or it can destroy it. Now, why this matters is lots of customer conflict happens in writing. We've talked about this before. Your written words now, because of technology, can literally live forever on the internet, we think. Your tone also represents the organization. And we all know that tone doesn't necessarily convert in written material. So care is needed to ensure that we're really clear, we're really concise, and that our tone won't be misconstrued. Also, one message can go viral and or it can be lethal to a company. So unlike our verbal conversations, when we write the communication, it can be shared, forwarded, posted, people can screenshot it. So even if you go back and delete something on social media, somebody might have a screenshot. When you write to one of your customers or to all of your customers, you're not just communicating, you're creating what's called a permanent record. And so we want to be really careful with those permanent records. Next, we're going to talk about the cost of poor customer communication. And yes, I made the S's dollar signs and I made the money fly away because in the ages or in the age we're in, we have things like Yelp, Google reviews, all kinds of online forums and platforms where a single poor response can reach thousands of customers in like a second. Um, and so those poor customer responses can lead to, of course, negative online reviews, loss of repeat business. If a place upsets you, you're probably not going to go back. It could equal legal exposure. There could be social media backlash. You could get, canceled online. There could also be damaged brand reputation. And so we really want to be careful with ourselves with written communication and with our future employees or future colleagues that we really have a good understanding of that on brand communication. A good rule of thumb when it comes to written communication is never respond emotionally, always respond strategically. So think about that. If you get some bad review on your business, which you spent time and energy and effort, you've put your heart and soul into it, and somebody puts a not necessarily true review online, it may cause some emotions to come up for you. A good rule of thumb is take a pause, maybe a long pause. Don't respond from emotion and think about the strategic way that you want to respond. You can ask yourself, what is the goal of this response and what outcome do I want? Your goal in these type of conversations is not to win, even though you may really feel like you want to set that person straight. Your goal is to maintain or build trust, reduce escalation, and protect your brand. This is also why it's really important to have business buddies. We've talked about this a lot in class, where you have a person that is also in business or maybe just a colleague that you can reach out to and say, oh my goodness, I got this review online. What do you think I should say? Or this is the response I'm planning to give. What do you think? Those business buddies can really be invaluable out there in the real world. Okay, why do customers escalate? You probably will study many, many, many more reasons why customers escalate when you go through the customer service class. But some of the reasons are they feel ignored, disrespected, not heard. Maybe they feel powerless. They are sometimes even surprised by the policies or they didn't know about the policies. There's lots of other reasons that customers could escalate. Now, most escalation is emotional, not necessarily logical. That means your response needs to address emotion before policy. And we've got a pretty neat way to kind of structure or model your difficult messages. And it's called CLEAR, it's an acronym. And C stands for keep a calm tone. L stands for listen and acknowledge, not necessarily agree, but acknowledge. E stands for empathize. We're going to look at what empathize means in just a moment. A stands for address the issue. R stands for reinforce the next steps. This structure prevents defensive writing and it keeps your messages organized and professional. When you think about speaking to those customers who are upset, you can hold this clear model in your mind or as you're preparing your written response and just kind of keeps you on a neutral tone there. Now, empathize, this may be a new skill to you, probably not, but in my opinion, empathy or empathizing with a customer can be a superpower if you use it well. Have you ever had a problem and some worker or some person in a business says, oh, I know how you feel, or I understand. I think we've talked about this in some of our classes. They can't quite possibly know how you understand, right? Because they're not you. This is where empathizing really jumps in and helps us with those upset customers. And the way that you do this is you basically listen for how the person is feeling, you acknowledge the feeling, and you validate their experience. And we want to avoid using the I statements because this is not about you. That person is upset, probably at the business, probably not even at you. And some of the examples that you might use are, wow, that sounds really challenging. Or it sounds like you didn't get what you were promised. And you have to be careful if you're natural, if you have a natural kind of undertone of sarcasm in your language, You know who I'm talking about. If it's you, sometimes it's me. But you just want to be careful that it doesn't come out in your language. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in Wednesday's class. Now, here's what not to do. You all already know this. We don't type in all caps, except for some places do use all caps. We've heard some examples of that in class. Also, don't lead with your sarcasm. Like I said earlier, have a friend read the words if this is your natural state of being. Like if you walk around in the world and you're just kind of, you lean toward sarcasm, have someone else read it and make sure that your natural tone of sarcasm didn't come out in the response to this customer. Also, we want to avoid blame. We want to avoid long defensive explanations. We also want to avoid the copy paste response or the artificial intelligence responses, right? We've talked about that a lot in class, how that artificial intelligence, dump it into the AI, see what the AI says I should say, and then just copy paste that in. It's evident and clear that that is not from a person, and that's just going to escalate that customer even more than they already are escalated. Also, we would really benefit from avoiding quoting a policy without empathy. And that sounds like, well, the policy says X, Y, and Z. So we'll talk about the policy quotes a little bit in class on Wednesday as well. Okay, a few tone shifts that actually can help in de-escalation. Instead of writing, it is clear that you did not read the policy. Ooh, we might say something like, it sounds like you were frustrated. Let's take a look together. And if you were writing this, you might say, let's schedule a call to review this or something of that nature. The next tone shift that could de-escalate, here's our example. That's not our fault, call DoorDash. Oh my goodness. Whew. Then there's an alternative here of, it makes sense that you're disappointed that the fries were soggy. Personally, I would add, please call our office so we can chat about this. Or, somehow we want to get that customer in touch with us so that we can help them. Because what we don't want to do, and we'll see this in just a couple of moments, we don't want to hash this out in an online platform. That generally is not going to work out really well. Now, sometimes we do need to say no. That's just a part of business. The way you say no determines whether the customer leaves angry or if they leave at least, understanding. They may not be happy, but maybe they understand and they feel heard. So when you do need to say no, a structure you could consider is leading with empathy or empathizing, having a very clear explanation, use your policy reference if you need that to back up why you can't do something, have an alternative option if that's at all available, and then show appreciation that the customer took the time to share their comment or their complaint with you. Now, here's a little side note on legal awareness when we're practicing writing to or for our customers. In some industries, your written communication can become legal evidence. So it would behoove you to be really careful about phrases like, this was completely our fault, if it wasn't. So you want to express care and concern when you're admitting liability, when you're promising outcomes that you cannot or may not be able to guarantee, when you're making emotional statements, and when you're speculating about fault. So those are just some times to just express some care and concern. Okay, we all know we live in the world of social media, and that means we need to talk about how should public responses be handled on social media. Here are some of those ideas. You should definitely be brief, show empathy, invite a private resolution. Generally, things don't get resolved out on the public square of social media. It's better to have a one-on-one conversation if possible. And then avoid detailed arguments. We don't want to do the back and forth on social media. That causes people to pick sides. There's misinformation. Things can get misconstrued. Things can also get screenshotted and taken out of context. So you just want to be careful with that. And I've got an example of what you might say. This is an example, not the example. You might say, We're disappointed to read this. Please send us a direct message or call us so we can help resolve this. That is something I would say. You could think of how you might make a response to that. Okay, next we're going to talk briefly about the psychology of trust. We do have a whole article as part of this lecture that you'll read and we'll talk about on Wednesday in class. And excuse me, basically, the psychology of trust is how trust is built or how trust is eroded. And our writing or our responses to customers can help or harm this. Trust builds when I, as the customer, feel heard, valued, respected, treated fairly, and when I don't feel diminished. Now, you can erode my trust as a customer if I feel blamed, if I feel ignored, if I feel minimized, if I feel talked down to, if I feel reprimanded, meaning like you should have read the policy or you should have read the contract. That's what reprimanded sounds like. Or if I feel patronized. Now, these are just a few ways that trust is built and trust erodes. We'll expand this a bit in our class on Wednesday. Okay, here's a response framework example. We have a customer complaint via email, and the customer says, I ordered 2 weeks ago and still haven't received my product. This is ridiculous. Now, sometimes when people read that, they think, oh, this customer is calling me ridiculous. No, that's not what they're doing. It's not a personal attack. The customer didn't get what they thought they were going to get when they thought they were going to get it, and now they're upset and they're doing name calling. That's just where that customer is. Here's a professional structure for the response. You could acknowledge their frustration, maybe use some empathy there. You could provide information like what is going on? Was there, a natural disaster that caused a delay? Was there a problem in your shipping area? What was the cause of this? Offer a solution or a resolution, and then provide the next step for the customer. When we're in class on Wednesday, we'll actually have opportunities to use these structured responses, kind of a little formula to build a response to a customer. And so we'll have an opportunity to practice this on Wednesday. Okay, we are wrapping up on our lecture here, and I just want to give you a little bit of encouragement for your journey. As a future business owner or leader, you will not be judged by how you handle the easy customers, right? You will be judged, however, by how you handle the difficult ones, especially the difficult ones that you have to or are forced to handle in public. Sometimes we have to handle those difficult customers in public because they refuse to go into a one-on-one situation. And so your way that you handle that, especially on social media with writing, is very important. Difficult conversations are not a problem to avoid. They are actually a leadership opportunity. And so we will spend lots of time on this Wednesday in class. Thank you for watching this lecture. And I've got at the end of our slide deck a reminder of the preparation for Wednesday's class and also a second link for the article. All right, folks, I will see you on Wednesday. I hope that you have a great day. Take care.